by way of a destination check, today is March 11th. Next week, Ezrat Hashem will meet as usual on the 18th. The next week, the 25th, I'm going to scratch. It's Erev Pesach. That's generally speaking, in my experience, each year I ask, should I have class just for Pesach? And each year a plurality of people say, no, either I'm preparing for Seder or, I live with somebody who would be upset with me if I sat around for an hour a couple nights before Passover, sitting in front of a computer screen. Or what it may be. So we'll assume that the 25th will scratch for that reason, and I will then say also we'll take the week of Passover off. That's April 1st. That's more or less so I can catch my breath. Moving forward from there, I actually don't know off the top of my head the communal observance schedule. The Thursday, April 8th is Yom HaShoah, and Thursday, April 15th is Yom HaAtzmaut. But I think communal observances might be the night, such as there, might be the night before, right? Yom HaShoah is generally observed on Erev rather than Yom. So just putting that out there. But I plan to be back on the 8th. We'll kick off, we'll take off on the 25th and on the 1st. With that, I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to do two things. Before I get to the bracha for Torah study, I'm going to give the requisite, even though this isn't the generation to which this is normally done with, I'm going to give the requisite trigger warning. The Talmud is, as I think all the Jewish tradition, but the Talmud specifically, it's nothing but trigger warnings. Last week we actually hit right at the end of theodicy, the end of why bad things happen to good people and things like this, and which presumably is troubling for many. So we're done with that, but there'll be other things to offend you this week, and every week possibly. So just know that that's there, and like the idea is to roll through it. It's a whatever 1800-year-old text. It's gonna offend you. So that's my warning. And then also before we started, Steve, it was nice seeing you at a virtual baby naming. Say yes, baby namings via Zoom for Zella Rubin.
It's very nice.
For Zella Rubin's great grandchildren, twins. So mazel tov to Zella, Debbie, etc., Arthur, etc., etc. The bracha before we begin is Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we're done with theodicy. Though again, like this, the last piece was sort of I liked the I like the last piece that we did where they sort of ended with with finally like the throwdown of like, are you accusing, if you're saying examine my deeds, are you accusing me of misdeeds? I haven't done anything wrong. They're like, well, are you accusing God of misdeeds? And they get into that essential problem. And then there's a whole like his wine, his whole supply of 400 barrels of wine turned to vinegar. And since he repented, the price of vinegar rose and was sold at the rate of wine, or the vinegar turned back to wine, something like this. And it had the great line, "He who steals from a thief has a taste of theft." Right? Might not be exactly theft to steal from a thief, but it's got the taste. It's like the rabbinic version of it quacks like a duck. So, new topic. I'm looking on page 30. I'm looking on page 30, and if you're looking along in the Sfaria, it is I'll put a link in the chat. If you're looking along online, it is page 5B, and it's paragraph number something. Oh, by the way, on the last week there was a virtual convention of the Rabbinical Assembly, International Association of Conservative Rabbis, and like the one of the keynote speakers was the one of the founders and the, I don't know his position, is one of the individuals who runs Sfaria that we the Talmud from. And again, like their his goal was to get the Talmud online and to get Jewish writings online so that people could access it as easily as anyone could, because back in the day, before they started, when you Googled Talmud, anti-Semitic sites came up first. So their goal was to deal with that. Anyway, so if you're looking on Sfaria online, this is Brachot 5B, paragraph 21. So page 5B, paragraph 21, because again, in a proper Vilna, in a traditional text, all the Hebrew Aramaic is on, that here is on many different pages, are on two sides of one page, and it's page 5A and B, front and back. So now, we are leaving off from all of the theodicy that we've been doing for a number of pages and a number of weeks, for that matter. We and we're back to prayer, if you can believe it. That in the volume called Brachot, we're not talking about the price of vinegar in Babylon, but we're going to talk about actual prayers. So and halachot will come out. The prayers, of course, will be strange. You'll see why I gave the trigger warning moment. If you're looking in the book, bottom of page 30, Tanya, it was taught in a Baraita, taught in a statement from the era of the Mishnah, but something that didn't make it into the Mishnah. Abba Binyamin, the sage Abba Binyamin said, Abba, presumably not his name, but like, I mean, their note is like or might have been his name, an honorific to like an elderly individual, right? Dad, father. Abba Binyamin Omer, Al Shnei Dvarim Haiti Mitzraer Kol Yamai, Al Tfilati Shetiye Lifnei Mitati, Al Mitati Shetiye Nituna Ben Tzafon L'Darom. So Abba Binyamin used to say, all my life I've taken great pains with regard to two things, that my prayers should be before my bed, and my bed should be placed north to south. This is, we have reached the point of Rabbinic Feng Shui. He has two things that are required. One is pray, and again, this is like pray when you're praying at home, pray before your bed, and your bed should be oriented, the length of it should be north-south. We'll get into why this is. What does this mean? So he said that, and the later generations know he says that, but they don't know why he said it. So now the text is going to try and like draw out like what's going on here. And by the way, the little notes, if you're looking in the bound book, the little notes there will send you to sections on either the background or the halacha. H indicates halacha. And I'll unpack that as we go through, but first I'll finish the paragraph in the main sense of the text. So what's going on here? Talmud asks, that my prayer be before my bed. What does that mean? What could that mean? My lifnei mitati. What does that mean before my bed? Like, does that mean that all of my prayers? Because usually when they say my tefillah, that tefillah, as you know, like prayer usually means amidah. That means I'm supposed to say my amidah like in front of your bed. It usually doesn't mean Shema, which is our normal topic. Maybe it means, if you might say that it means stand before your bed and pray. But if you'd say that, which is sort of like the plain meaning of it, there's a difficulty. Why is there a difficulty? Because we have another statement. We have a contradiction from that. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Item Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, and some say it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi who said, Minayin shemitpalel shelo yeh davar chotzetz beno uvein akir. He said, because they have a teaching, where do we know that when somebody prays, you should have nothing standing between you and the wall? How do we know this? Because it says in the book of Isaiah, because there's a line in the book of Isaiah that says Hezekiah, the king, turned to the wall and prayed. There's a quote in Isaiah that the great king Hezekiah is the greatest or one of the great of the Israelite kings, right? Of the Judean kings, that he turned to the wall and prayed. So look, if a righteous guy like Hezekiah davened facing the wall, then they learned from that you should be facing a wall when you pray, i.e., and not your bed. So this is talking about praying at home. You're not always going to daven at the shul. You're going to pray at home. So Abba Binyamin says, always pray in front of your bed. I guess what he might mean by that. Does that mean like, just before you, just as soon as you get up in the morning, pray, or as soon as you, or just the last thing before you go to bed at night, you do Mariv, something like this. But we also have this line, face the wall. Go ahead.
Yeah, it says the wall, not a wall. So does that mean, which wall are they talking about?
So they're talking about a wall in your home. Kier is like a wall in your home. Like
they're not talking about facing the wall, like facing east towards the wall in Jerusalem, or facing. Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't they say face a wall? What does the wall mean?
The Hebrew is hakir, is the wall.
The means it's some specific wall. Are they talking about a specific wall as opposed to any wall?
No. I think it actually just means the wall in your house. Like the sort of a good question might be here. I'm going to rather than my reaction was to stand up and get a book, but let's do it the newfangled way, which is to pull it up on Sfaria. Here we say it has God turned to face the wall and praise, and you just and that gives you the citation and hypertext it to this. This is half my life in rabbinical school is looking up quotes in the 30th chapter of Isaiah, which they memorize, but I don't. So what's going on here? In those days, Hezekiah fell dangerously ill. Isaiah came and said to him, "This says the Lord, set your affairs in order, for you're going to die. You will not get well." Thus, which you don't want Isaiah to say to you. Thus Hezekiah turned to face the wall, Hakir, Palel, and prayed to God. And he prays to God, and God wholeheartedly, profusely, etc., etc. And he weeps. Then God tells Isaiah, "Go tell him, I heard you. I've seen your tears. I hereby add 15 years to your life." Right? So this is why you want, however Hezekiah prayed, pray like that. It's sort of this great, this is these are things, if it's not in the Haftorah in Isaiah, we never read it, right? Great scene. And you see sort of the rabbi's point, I don't know what it's, I'll have what she's having moment, right? He's however Hezekiah prays, this is how I'm supposed to pray. So, but the wall, it seems to be just the wall in his house, because Hezekiah is living, the first temple is still standing, right? The wall in Jerusalem is not going to be built for another 800 years.
Right. Okay, but still it says the wall instead of a wall. All the Talmudic scholars are picking every single word. Wouldn't a reasonable question to be which wall, if you want to pray like Hezekiah, which wall was the wall as opposed to a wall? Any wall. Pick a wall, any wall.
Right. I hear you. So I'm looking at, that's why I clicked on the verse,
unless the Hebrew doesn't translate that way, and then
the Hebrew does. The Hebrew is the wall, not a wall.
Okay.
So Rashi doesn't comment on it. So my best guess would be, and I can check other commentaries, but my best would be that it's like your back is to the wall. It's that it's just sometimes it's a matter of speaking.
Okay.
So either way, it's a great scene from Hezekiah.
So this has nothing to do with like how we're supposed to face in a certain direction when we're like in shul or anything like
right.
that?
No, he's talking, right. So they're not talking about facing a certain direction, like towards Jerusalem or anything like this. They're just saying, curiously, by the way, their vector here is pray either facing your bed or facing the wall or a wall. I mean, obviously, you're going to have, your bed might not be facing east. You might not be able to face Jerusalem and face your bed at the same time. Certainly you can face a wall and Jerusalem at the same time. Yeah. They're on a different thing. This shows, but I mean, so did they face Jerusalem? Elsewhere we'll find that out. But did everyone do it? As we see, they had different practices.
Rabbi.
Yep.
So the way I read it, my prayer should be before my bed. So and it's north-south. In my room, the headboard is up against the wall. And if I just did it before the discussion, I would stand at the foot of the bed facing the headboard and that wall.
Right.
Apparently, I can't have the bed in my way.
Right.
So I'm going to turn to the left and see if there's a dresser, or turn to the right and see if there's plain wall. That's the wall I'll use.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They want their impression is plain wall. So yeah, just as you Jews love praying to walls. It's not just the one. If you have the book, the print book, sort of like the bottom corner, like maybe 2 inches up from the bottom of the page, there's a lot of navigation here. Like near the edge of the page, the outer edge of the page, it gives the halakha on this. From where is it derived that one who prays should have nothing separating between him and the wall? Minayin shemitpalel shelo yeh davar chotzetz beino ubein hakir. When a person, so this is their sort of like, this is the modern editors summarizing of where the halakha goes from here. It's common in Hebrew volumes of Talmud that there's a little note on the side sending you to Maimonides or the Shulchan Aruch as to where this discussion lands. When a person prays, there should be nothing between him and the wall, so as to avoid any potential distractions. An object that is secured in place in a mobile, such as a closet, and I think of like what you might buy at IKEA, like a standing closet, not a walk-in, but like a standing closet, such as a closet or a bed, which is not typically moved, to your point, Aaron, which is not typically moved, is not considered a separation. Similarly, neither a person nor an animal is considered a separation. The Ramah, who is the Ashkenazic gloss on the Shulchan Aruch, holds that although a person is indeed not considered a separation, an animal is considered a separation. Daven facing the wall is actually where it comes that if you're davening in the middle of the room, there'll be stuff going on. Somebody's going to walk in front of you, you're getting distracted.
Yeah, Rabbi, is the whole thing just about don't be distracted? Is that really what this is about?
Well, it's not quite clear which is I don't know what the right phrase would be, the chicken, which is the egg, like which comes first. Is it that they have a law saying daven facing the wall, then they have to figure a reason for it? That's the way it's coming off. Or is it that the rule was minimize your distractions, and so we daven facing the wall, and the first half of that just sort of got lost, so they only had the second half, but in fact that's what's driving it. Logically, you'd think that it was that distraction is what's the main idea. But bed feels like it's something different. But yeah, presumably with wall, it's about distraction. It's not that we have a wall fetish. So they have a problem because they have a quote from great sages saying that daven facing the wall, and we have the line from Hezekiah that he davened facing the wall, and God granted him an extra 15 years of life. So again, why wouldn't you? But why is Abba Binyamin talking about his bed? Their answer is rather, maybe he didn't mean, don't say that he says before my bed. Really, it means next to my bed. He stood like this is sometimes what they do if they have a real problem. They almost rewrite it. They amend it, is what you'd say in scholarly circles. They're like, when he says before my bed, he must mean next to, meaning standing next to his bed, facing the wall. And he sort of says his evening prayers. And the halacha on that, if you look up in the same column I was looking at before, sort of the middle of the page 30, outer edge, the halacha they note on that is most hold, meaning most halachic authorities believe, most hold that Abba Binyamin's statement applies to the morning prayer as well, meaning not just the evening prayer, but also shachrit. Once the time for prayer, dawn has arrived. One may not eat or begin any work until he recites the morning prayer. Some, based on Rashi's opinion, prohibit even Torah study before prayer. However, many are lenient, especially if it's communal Torah study. So again, as we saw before, it's like with we said with the evening Shema and the evening prayer, you should daven before you eat because you won't forget to eat, but you might forget to daven, and the same is true in the morning. Make sure that you pray first, because if you eat first, the morning will get away from you. So always make sure you pray first, because you'll make sure that you get time to eat. Now we get to the fun part. This is the top of page 31, really the next line. Al mitati. So what does he mean when he says my bed should be placed north to south? Why is this? Now, the modern editor throws in that north to south, that he believed that the north to south aspect is that it's in deference to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence, which rests between east and west, the direction of the temple, as a Holy of Holies was to the west, while the main entrance was to the east. This is all of the insane details that you find in a Torah portion like this week's Vayakal Pekude, describe which goes over the ins and outs of the setting up of the Mishkan and later the temple. This is them reading it closely, right? The Holy of Holies is to the west, the main entrance to the east. So your bed is oriented with this. Listen, they say, therefore the sages were careful not to perform actions inconsistent with that sanctity while facing east to west. And therefore, Abba Binyamin was careful not to sleep in a bed that faced east to west. So what you do in we'll say, the marital bed is not what you do in the sanctuary or in the Mishkan or in the temple. So this seems, or at least for the modern commentator, this seems to be what's going on in his mind, that east to west is this holy access of approaching God. So the more animal-like things we do goes on a different axis. Now watch you'll have questions on that, but hold on, because I want to do the next paragraph before we go any further. Da'amar Rabbi Chama ben Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Chama said that Rabbi Chanina said that Rabbi Yitzchak said, Kol notnim mitato ben zafon ledarom, anyone who places his bed north-south, chayevin lebanim Zacharim, they will be blessed with male children. Shne'amar ve'tzfoncha tilema v'idcha yispeu banim. As it's said in the Psalms, and whose belly you fill with your treasure, tzfunecha, treasure tzfunecha, will have sons in plenty, leave their abundance to their babies, right? Tzfunecha, treasure, in this line that refers to sons in plenty, sounds like tzfon. Tzfon means north, tzfunecha means treasure. It's related to sons in plenty. So how do you get sons? Here, he says, orient your bed north-south. As you well know, for most of history, most of Jewish history, and certainly in Orthodox circles to our very day, and in many areas of the world to this very day, sons, 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 sons. It's all about sons. So, orient your bed north to south, you'll get sons. Now I'll pause. Right, so this is did they know this didn't work? Obviously, right? I mean, it's not just the, how do you explain the baby naming earlier tonight of male and female twins, who presumably were conceived at the same time. Like there's a, or situations like that, right? Or like the fact that, it seems somewhat random. These are the things. This is in modern English, the idiom is Baba Misa, right? Oh, maybe that's not English.
Rabbi.
But note that this isn't a Baba Misa. Baba Misa is a female, is putting on females. These are obviously all males.
Rabbi, isn't there arguably something very holy about having children? And if so, shouldn't your bed be east to west?
Yeah. Here, notice that so there is obviously, and and really nothing more, right? There's nothing more holy. The heart of the tradition is that human beings are the image of God, and this is how that image is made. So nothing more holy. I want to point out that the explanation being like, don't do it that way, is the modern editor throwing in on that, and he might be taking it from, I'm not sure where he's taking it from, but again, like the dark, the darker print, bold, is the literal translation or close to the literal translation, and the light face is the 21st century editor. The Talmud, so far at least, has just said that that it's based on this verse. Treasure sounds like the word north, and the verse with treasure in it is linked to having lots of sons. That's their thing. So they're just saying north, south, and not linking it to the Mishkan. The modern editor links it to the Mishkan, though presumably he's not the first to do so. So yes, so it is, and again, nothing more important or more holy than to preach. And I'll go even further. The rabbis were very interested in propriety, which is to say, not taking private matters public, but they're definitely not uncomfortable with sex, as will be apparent in time. But anyway, the sons are desired, and orient your bed north-south for sons. If you have daughters, you might. I'm guessing that everyone at some point over the course of this conversation has been, and thought about their how their bedroom is oriented. Anyway, and by the way, the halakha. This is why I want to throw it back to the halakha. In the middle of the previous page 30, it has a note on this. My bed should be placed north to south. The Rambam, Maimonides, holds that a person must make certain that he does not sleep east to west. This comes down as a halakha. I say rabbinic feng shui. I wasn't joking. Your bed must not be placed east to west, even when sleeping alone in his bed. Stringency is appropriate in this case. Therefore, one should place his bed north to south. The Shulchan Aruch, however, rules that this applies only when a couple is in bed together. Now, that couple in bed together indicates that the concern is male children. Even when you're alone indicates that the problem isn't children, right? So you see this the debate playing out over the centuries. However, he concludes that it's appropriate to refrain from placing the bed east to west, even when one is alone. Like you can do it, but you really shouldn't.
Rabbi, I sometimes get the impression or get the feeling, why did people spend centuries arguing about these types of points?
I think the disinterest in it is super modern, meaning like what to do to have sons, say, is of intense interest. It is, only in this, like super recent past, and only in Western societies, right, where that's become not a concern, and where folk ways, or what we would call folk ways about how to have sons, have been looked down on. I don't know them, but I'm sure this world is filled with, drink this, you'll have sons, do that, this time of night, that time of night, this time of the cycle, that time, these are the things that are concerns. And part of what I think is valuable about doing this is to know that, Judaism is no different. Even more so, next paragraph. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, Av ein ishto miflet naflim. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, furthermore, his wife will not miscarry, meaning that if you conceive your child conceive your fetus in a bed oriented north-south, no miscarriage. Ketivacha. And it's written regarding this. Because it's with Rebecca's pregnancy. It's same verse. Your belly will fill with treasure. Your belly will fill with treasure. We have this link on treasure and north-south and a full belly, i.e. womb. This. Is also written there. And also in the story of Rebecca giving birth to twins, it says when the time to give birth, her belly was when the time for birth was fulfilled. Same word, timale v'imalu. There were twins. So they link, because the same word appears in both places. They link it that you're going to carry to term. So that's our little thing. If so put the word in the street. If you want to have children, male children, that's how you should orient your bed. Now we're going to move on from Feng Shui to back to prayer. More quotes from Abba Ben Yamin. We're skipping along from Abba Ben Yamin, was the guy who gave the last quote, so he's going to give the next quote. Tanya. It was taught, another Baraita, another old teaching from Abba Ben Yamin. Shnayim, שנכנסו להתפלל, וקדם אחד מהם להתפלל, ולא האמין אל חברו ויצא, טרפים לו תפילתו בפניו, שנאמר טרף נפשו באפו, ולאמנך Observance. Benjamin says, if two people entered a synagogue to pray, and one begins praying before the other and doesn't wait for the other, his prayer is thrown back in his face. I'm skipping over like the light face stuff, as it is stated, because there's a line in Job, you who throw out your soul in your face for your soul, for your sake will the earth be forsaken. The rock will be moved from its place. Which he reads, and I don't know the context of the Job quote. You're traveling along together. It's time to daven. There's a shul on the roadside, another roadside shul. You stop in to pray. And the other guy, whatever it might be, has to go to the bathroom, is lagging a little behind, is getting himself together, whatever it is. Don't start without him. If you're just sort of like go in and rush in without you, rush in and do it without you, your prayers won't be answered, but worse than not answered, thrown back in his face. Wait for the other guy, do it together. So the note here is the note here, the halacha at the bottom of the page, if you're reading the printed volume, it says, when reciting the evening prayer, the Ma'ariv, in a synagogue outside the city before leaving, one must wait for the other person present to finish his prayer. The same applies to a synagogue that's not outside the city. However, one need not wait for a person who begins after everyone else, or who began with everyone else, but who extends his prayers with additional supplications, which is to say, like it seems to be, there are a couple of different scenarios here. Maybe we're leaving, we work together, we're stopping by the shul on the way home, say, and I start early before the other guy's there, and then sometimes I'm going to leave, I could be leaving him alone, which is bad form, like now he's got to walk home alone. Or he's going to be distracted by the fact that I'm like packing myself up before, while he's still at it once he started. Like this, God wants you to wait. If you don't wait for the slow guy in your party, your prayers will be torn up and thrown back at you. This is a note of sort of derech eretz, of proper conduct. Next paragraph. Not only that, but if you like, again, if you're rushing through your prayers while the other guy is still waiting for it, and you're sort of like not waiting for him to start. Again, they're talking about males. V'od eila. So Ram Shechina, Israel. Not only that, but it causes the Shechina, the divine presence, to remove itself from Israel. As it says, as that verse goes on, the verse quoted a moment ago, the rock will be moved from its place. And whenever it says rock, that means the Holy One of Blessing. Rock means God. Because we know in Deuteronomy, God is called Tzur, it's called rock. It's not a action movie actor. Don't rush the prayer. This is part of to this day, like synagogue, this is not exactly what they're talking about, but there was a question do you wait for everyone to finish the Amidah before, the rabbi world, do you wait for everyone to finish the Amidah before starting the service again? Is it rude to then sort of be talking over somebody's prayer? Sort of the impression here is that means my prayer might be toned out and thrown back in my face. And then there's this other thing of we got to keep things moving. Everyone else is waiting. There's things like this, right? So you see that sort of tensions going on.
Rabbi?
Yep.
The times I've been in Orthodox services, it always seems to me to be a race. And I'm always left behind, obviously, but it just seems to be a race. No one seems to be waiting for anyone else.
Yes, so that varies from shul. Hasidic shul sometimes will wait because there's the Rebbe may have given a a talk on, as you were on that it's a good mira, that it's good form to wait for somebody politely. But generally, the Orthodox practice is exactly what you're saying, which is a belief that that the point of prayer is to say it as quickly as possible. I wouldn't act as if I'm innocent of that. But yes, this is somehow a little bit less talking about. It could be talking about speed. It may or may not be talking about speed, but that practice will be is looked down upon in almost all of the literature, including the Talmud, and remains common. I mean, it's obviously an effect of the length of services, right? Like if you have to do a lot frequently, rush through it. Maybe if there were less, people would still rush through it, but there'd be less to rush through. But yeah, so common. But here you see, like there is a sense of, of not liking that. Keeps going. In the same vein, and if you wait for him in the synagogue, what's his reward, right? So I get that if I don't do it, my prayer is thrown back in my face. But what if I do it? Amara, top of 32, if you're following along. This might be beginning of page 6, 6a. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Hanina, he says, Zecha Brachot alalu. If you wait in the shul for somebody else to finish their prayer and don't rush out, you get the following blessing. It's said in Isaiah, if only you had listened to my mitzvot, then your peace would be as a river, and your righteousness as the waves of the sea. Your seed would be as the sand, and the offspring of your body like the grains thereof. For his name would be neither cut off nor destroyed from before me. They offer an explanation for what the link is between these things, though I would say the most reasonable one is the line is listening to my mitzvot, right? If you stand there waiting for somebody to finish their prayers, it's like listening to God's mitzvot, and you'll be blessed with peace as abundant as a river, i.e. ever flowing and never stopping, and children as copious as the sands of the seashore. That's what you get for waiting for people. So to Stephen's point of like people tend not to do it, it's not for that sociology trumping, as it were, the words as written. Every so often that happens. Weiter. So yes, very, very common. We can deal with demons before we leave. This next so pause. We're gonna get back to prayers in a moment. We're gonna hit pause on prayers for a moment, but we've had 2 quotes from Abba Binyamin about bed north south, and then about waiting for prayer. Now we're going to get a 3rd quote from Abba Binyamin. We're just again throwing out Abba Binyamin quotes. Tanya Abba Binyamin Omer. Imale natna reshut la'ayin la'reshut ein kol bria yechola la'amod mipnei hamezikin. He taught, if the eye was given permission to see, no creature would be able to withstand the amount of demons that are around. He didn't think it'd go here. So this isn't like linked to anything else other than we're throwing out Abba Binyamin quotes. This is again sort of like, well, I heard him say, like so. And we had the ones on the bed, north south. We had the one on the prayer, wait, and now we have one on demons. If you could really see what he says, if human beings or anyone could really see the amount of demons there are in the world, literally you would freak out. You wouldn't be able to handle it. You can't see them, but demons abound. This is the opposite of, obviously, as of angels, right? Angels presumably are bounding out there too, and we'd be very happy to see them. Why can't we see the angels? Well, maybe if we saw I'm riffing, like maybe if we saw the angels, we'd also see the demons. But the rabbis don't have a world where, in popular culture now, people, angels are a thing, right? Sort of this sense of the supernatural giving you a push in the right direction. The rabbis, to their credit, don't think they're angels without demons. Not only do they believe in demons, but they're all over. What do they mean by demons? They mean demons. Amar Abaye. Now we're on demons, so we're going to go on a little demon riff, not super long, but for part of this page. Inu nafshe minayin. Abaye said, another one of the great rabbis, says they're more numerous than we are. They stand over us like mounds of earth surrounding a pit. So there are more demons than there are people, and it's like, if you're digging out a pit and the dirt's piled along the side, that's what we're like. We're here, and there are like piles of demons surrounding us, all around us. This is wild, right? Like this is like every so often, as we speak in like the history classes about, that sort of like the mission of Reform and to a certain extent conservative Judaism was to like try to rationalize and enlightenmentize the Jewish tradition. Part of what shamed them was the demonology, right? This is, in Eastern European Yiddish culture, this would come off as the evil eye, the ayin hara, but it's an outgrowth of this, demons. Amar Rav Huna, kol chad v'chad mina, it says that each one of us has 1,000 demons to the left and 10,000 to his right. There's a line in Psalm 91, 1,000 will fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand. They will not approach you. So there are 1,000 on your left hand and 10,000 on your right hand, demons. Amar Rava, this is what I want to get to tonight. This is the part that I like. Amar Rava, hi, the Putna Have Bakala says, Rava said that the crowding at the Kala is from demons. This is our first reference to Kala. What's Kala? It's a convention. It's when they'd get together for a weekend and do stuff. This is why the synagogue has a Kala, not Kala bride, but Kala, like the weekend retreat. The is from this. It's only mentioned a couple of times, but it's a Talmudic thing where essentially they'd have a convention, right? Like all the rabbis from all the different towns would get together and like dentists have a convention or whatever. The Kala is the rabbis' convention that they would go to. So he says the crowding at the Kala is from demons. Which seems to be like they would get together and like maybe like the rooms were so crowded. They were like, this couldn't possibly be just colleagues crowding into these rooms. It's so crowded here. It must be like that there are demons among us that like are making us packed in so tight. I want to keep going with this. The crowding of Kala is from them, and the notes at the bottom, if you have a print edition, at the bottom of the page, in the middle of the page, at the very bottom, it says, typically some pronouncements of this kind are to be understood literally, while others are to be understood metaphorically. When he says that the Kala, the convention, feels so crowded because of demons, really? Is that really the case? Like, the demons are there, wearing name tags or whatever? Like, what's this? Some viewed this passage that ascribes the crowding at the Kala to demons as a critique of overcrowding at these large gatherings, meaning like that it's he's not saying literally demons, but like almost like they they didn't book too big a big enough room for this, or they're letting in too many people, one or the other. not important for our purposes which. Many people stood and congregated far from where the Torah learning was concentrated with no intention to study Torah. Rava mockingly said it would be preferable if these people did not come, and that it was the demons that pushed them out there in order to cause overcrowding. And that's from a later rabbinic authority. But what I like there is the idea that at every convention, they're the people who are in the main hall learning the stuff that they spent the organization to learn, and there are also people sort of out in the hallway schmoozing. This seems to be a 1,000-year-old complaint against the guys who like go and are just out in the hall schmoozing instead of like being in the room, doing what they told their spouse that they were leaving town to go do. But instead they're just sort of, next to the water cooler. So it could be that. Could be a complaint against demons. It could be a complaint against the guys who go to convention and don't go to any of the sessions, but just schmooze. He keeps going. Back to the text. Those whose knees are fatigued, even though one did not exert himself, that's from demons. Like if your knees feel sort of fatigue easily and things like that they're ascribing to demons, and there's no like discernible thing. I know if I was standing all day why it was, but like sometimes I don't have a reason for it. Demons. The clothes of the sages that wear out is from demons, being that we're sitting here all day. Why are our clothes wearing out sooner than they should? That's demons are sort of like rubbing against you when your clothes wear out sooner than you would expect, and there's no like clear made of it. This they're ascribing to demons. And feet, when your feet are in pain, and again, there's no like clear cause of it. Again, I know if I'm standing all day, but sometimes my feet hurt and I can't quite figure out why. Demons. So you see what, sort of like, again, this is what we would say is folk wisdom. If you want to ascribe to wisdom, we're almost at an hour. I want to do the next paragraph because it is, it's the last one on demons, and it's totally memorable. So you might say, maybe you're a rationalist, and you're like, demons, I don't believe it. How do I know there are demons out there? Like it feels like you're just making it up. Good news for you. There's a way to detect demons in your presence. Hi, man. If you want to know that there are demons, how do you do it? You want to really know? What do? It is all in Aramaic. I'm just going to, when it's Hebrew, it's sort of like easier to unpack, but I'll just do the English. Place fine ashes around your bed. And in the morning, you'll see chicken footprints in the ash, because demons, whether or not you need this, demons have feet like chickens. You've got a bedroom. You spread some fine ash around your bed, and in the morning you'll see these inhuman footprints, even though nothing's been there. If there were demons in your room, you'll see that you'll see the footprints there. So if you really want to see them, if you want to see demons, what do you have to do? This is rare, by the way, to get this sort of thing in the Talmud, but part of the reason I picked Brachot is because here it is. One who seeks to see them, i.e. the demons, should first take the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat, born to a firstborn female black cat. Burn it, i.e. the afterbirth of said cat, in the fire, grind it, and place it in his eyes, and he will see them.
I want to know who tried that and came up with that theory.
Rabbi, this sounds just like a European fairy tale.
The European, sorry, Jerry?
European fairy tale.
Yeah, like witchcraft.
It's mind-blowing. So this is it. Like the again, if it wasn't here in black and white, who would believe me? But here it is, right? I mean, so yes, so obviously to the point of European fairy tale, like it's in Christian culture, it's here in Jewish culture, it's obviously, it's probably in, my guess is it's in most cultures, right? Certainly, we're not the only ones with demons, but no, this is as, I my first association is to like Shakespearean witches, doing Eye of Newt and what have you. But yeah, so anyway, I just have to say it again for the joy of saying it again. One who seeks to see the demons should first take the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat, born to a firstborn female black cat, burn it in the fire, grind it and place it in his eyes, and he will see them. Then place the ashes in an iron tube sealed with an iron seal, gushpanka, lest the demons steal it from him, and seal the opening so he will not be harmed. Right, because if the demons know that you're doing this, they would steal it from you. So you have to seal it away. Obviously, the iron must be some sort of like kryptonite type thing that like they can't penetrate, right? Lead, whatever it is. I performed this procedure, answer to Joe's question, saw the demons and was harmed, meaning saw them mitchazek, damage came to him from doing it. I'll let you come to your own conclusion on that. The sages prayed for mercy on his behalf, and he was healed. Not just Shakespeare, not just Christians, we have our own grind up the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat to see and sprinkle it in your eyes. This is like every so often you're like, wow, who thought of olives? Like how to eat olives? Like, but this is much.
Rabbi, just a general concept. We just spent the last few weeks talking about why bad things happen to good people.
Yep.
Is this just another take on that? Just blame it on
demons?
Because these are bad things happening to good people. Maybe on a smaller scale.
I think smaller scale. So yes, obviously the only way you would arrive at demon is if there are negative things happening that you have no explanation for.
Right.
But you see the things they're ascribing to them are sort of penny ante things, right? Like
yes.
If my feet are sore, my knees hurt, this room is too crowded, right? It's not the horrible stuff that we were, this is my 10th son, like the
right.
So I can't promise a lot of this grinding up the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat, but really, one is sort of to know that it's there, and here it is.
I think it's interesting that the black cat reference is so universal. It's in Christian literature. It's in Arab literature. It's not just. It's kind of a universal thing. So it must have originated somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, because also like they didn't really keep a cat. And it's like in Israel, they don't have house cats as pets. I don't think the way Americans might. I think cats are sort of around and more like squirrels, right? Like they're sort of around and about doing their thing.
Well, in Europe, black cats were associated with rats. They were used to hunt rats. Right. So there was a health reason, but you see it in Arab literature, you see it in Christian literature, and now you see it here. So there's kind of, you get the feeling they're just pulling this from the societal norms almost.
Great. I mean, you'd think so. Like, there's definitely no verse. They don't have a Torah verse for this, right? So it feels like it's just sort of like everybody, quote unquote, believes this stuff, and the solution for seeing these demons is so ridiculous. Like, it's so far beyond that you have to assume that they know that it's sort of a silly, impossible thing because it's so out there. But yeah, I don't have a great explanation for it, but I sort of happy to read it.
Black cat breeding would be a good business.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. All right, we will pause there for the evening. If you try this over the course of the next week, please let me know.